don't for a moment think that your husband does not have emotional needs too, just because he doesn't reflect it in the same way as you, right? And so when you initiate with your husband, what you're saying to him is, I find you attractive.
Come on.
I desire you. I want you. Again, why does that work for men? It links back to his ego. He needs that from you.
Women are so fond of saying what they don't want, but they never seem to know what they want. They never tell you what they want. They never say what they want, but they will fill the house up and annoy you and nag you with everything they don't want.
Life is busy, and I hear many people say sex is the last thing on my mind. To me, that's almost like saying my marriage is the last thing on my mind.
Okay, good stuff. Adeaze is a wife, a mother of three boys, three amazing boys, a BBC radio presenter, marriage and relationships coach with a client base spanning around the globe and an online following of over 20,000. Adeaze's mission is to radically transform the marriages and lives of at least thousands of people. For many years, she's been privileged in the position of mentoring and being a support system for many young women, which has further grown into supporting married couples and the launch of her coaching practice, Marriage for Real, which seeks to counteract the negative profile marriage has received over the years by highlighting and promoting positive, healthy marriages and relationships. As recently published author, which you'll be sharing with us, which is actually the theme of what we're discussing tonight, is her new book, 7 Intimacy Killers, available on Amazon. Adeaze also has a podcast where she freely shares advice on how people can create the relationships they truly desire. Please welcome Adeaze Chiwoko. She's going to talk for the next 20 minutes, and I'll be back in the next 20 minutes, somewhere around 8 o'clock, and we're just going to 8:10, and we're just going to have a big conversation. Welcome, Adeaze. Thanks for coming.
Thanks so much, Aaron, and thanks to everybody here on the Thrivers group. I am absolutely excited, and I feel very privileged to be here to talk about my favorite subject, which is marriage, but also we're going to go into intimacy. Let me give you a little bit of background. Oh my gosh, I've just noticed I've still got the charger in this thing. Let me give you the background. So there we go. A few years back, I launched Marriage for Real. That happened as I became passionate about getting the message across that even difficult times, even the toughest times in marriage, does not need to be the end. My passion was developed after my husband and I going through a period of infidelity, where I truly believed, we both truly believed, that that would be the absolute end of our marriage. I could not see any way forward. And I believed the usual words that people had said: leopard can't change a spot, once a cheat's always a cheater. Once the trust is gone, it can't be rebuilt. Once the intimacy is gone, say goodbye, it can't come back. I believe I was gifted with, which I've now gone ahead and researched and studied and found that actually everything that I learned during that time was correct. But I was gifted with a special wisdom and a knowledge in how to work with my husband to create an amazing marriage that is actually far stronger than the marriage we had before the intimacy. And that's one of the things that I work with my clients on doing, is really helping them to create an amazing, thriving marriage that they can actually enjoy and flourish within. After the infidelity, what we're definitely not going to do was go back to having a humdrum, mundane marriage. You know, looking around and seeing people married and just really sensing that the passion had gone, the excitement had gone, the adventure had gone, the flourishing had gone. And I really didn't want that. We didn't want it. So I started to use and develop strategies and tools that I saw work within my own marriage. I began to share this with other people. Started to share my knowledge on social media, began to study and research, and really found a principle of marriage. One of the greatest mistakes I see people make is the belief that marriage just happens. You're kind of lucky in love. You either get a good marriage or you don't. Some people are just perfect for each other. Actually, what I've discovered is that marriage is created and it's based on principle, in the same way that if you would want to grow a flourishing apple tree, there are certain principles, ingredients, things, steps, strategies that you would need to take in order to have that amazing apple tree. Faith alone, prayer alone, keeping your fingers crossed alone don't do it. The great news about the fact that marriage is based on principle is that if you get the principles right, you get the results. You get an amazing marriage. You don't bother with learning the principles. You don't bother with gaining the understanding. Then you just kind of, you're throwing your marriage out to the wind, and what you get is what you get. So that's how this whole thing came about. I've managed to build an amazing following of people. I have clients around the world, as far as Australia, Qatar, Zambia, America, Canada, and right here in the UK. And I love, absolutely adore seeing a couple come to me. They can't even sit next to each other. They can't even look at each other. They feel like it's all over. They feel like they can't go further. And just by spending that time on my program and getting the tools, the strategies, the understanding, and the principles, we've had couples come out of divorce courts back to living with each other again and happy and flourishing. So that is my passion. That is my heart. My heart is that we don't just have marriages, but we have amazing, passionate, beautiful, exciting marriages. Otherwise, to me, what's the point? Many people are living in marriages where it's like a business partner, or they're living with a flatmate. And we're going to talk about that. So today's topic was intimacy killers. What are the intimacy killers? Now, when I say intimacy, everybody gets super excited because they think I'm just going to talk about sex. But actually, what I want to do today is really give you an understanding what the true meaning of intimacy is. Right? What is true intimacy? I also want to help you to understand the things that you may be doing unawares that is actually killing the intimacy, and what a marriage without intimacy looks like, why it's so important to really focus on the intimacy beyond the sex, and how intimacy is really holding your marriage together. Now, it's a lot to try and get through within the next 20 minutes, but I will absolutely do my best. So let's start with intimacy. Like I said, many people will say, well, intimacy is sex. Well, you're not wrong, but it's not the full picture. True intimacy is deep connectivity, okay? It's that you know me, I know you. It's that deep understanding. It's a deep friendship. It's based on vulnerability. I can be my complete self with you, and you can be your complete self with me. It's about acceptance of each other, the beautiful, the ugly, the bad, the good. It's that deep connectivity. That's what intimacy is about. Intimacy gets better with age. The more I know about you, the more I accept of you, the more that I'm secure in you. I open up, I free myself, and you can do the same with me. Intimacy is actually meant to grow, right? Against popular belief that actually when you get married, the intimacy starts to die. It's not supposed to. Actually, when you get married and you spend the years together, that intimacy is supposed to become better, stronger. It's like a fine wine. It gets better with age. So if you're in a position where you're like, well, mine isn't like a fine wine, it's a bit like a Diet Coke, then you need to be asking yourself what's going on with the intimacy. Okay, so that's what intimacy really is. And you notice I've not mentioned sex yet. Not yet. Because sex is beyond that. And, I work with couples who will come to me and say, look, we're having real problems in the bedroom. And I'll say, well, how's your intimacy? And they look at me completely confused because they're like, well, that's what we're asking you about, in the bedroom. And I'm like, no, your intimacy. How deeply connected are you? How vulnerable are you with each other? How much trust is there? How much of you are actually best friends? That's what true intimacy is all about. Now, again, another aspect that I really need you to understand, and something that I do explain in the book, is that there are actually 4 dimensions of intimacy. Physical intimacy is one of the dimensions, but actually there's another 3. There's spiritual intimacy, intellectual or mental intimacy, and there's emotional intimacy. So let me repeat that again if you want to write that down. Emotional intimacy, mental or intellectual intimacy, depending on what your favorite word is, okay, and spiritual intimacy. Then the 4th one is physical intimacy. Now listen to this. You get the emotional, spiritual, and intellectual intimacy right, you've got no problems with the physical intimacy. And oftentimes, if you're having problems with the physical intimacy, I can almost guarantee you that there's an issue with either the emotional, spiritual, or the intellectual intimacy. Most often, particularly for women, it is the emotional intimacy that is off. So if you're having problems physically, you need to be considering those other 3 dimensions of intimacy. And what does having problems look like? Well, I don't know, Adaeze. How would you know? How would I be able to say I'm having physical intimacy issues? Well, again, people say once you get married, you have less sex. Well, there's less sex and there's, really poor levels of frequency. And a married couple is supposed to be having sex at least once a week. And that's a minimum. And actually, couples who are the happiest, who are the strongest, who are going the longest, who are flourishing, are having sex at least once a week. And please note, I did say at least. So for those of you that are saving sex for special occasions, you might want to relook at that. You might want to relook at that. So you want to be connecting physically. And let me stay on sex for a moment before I go into what's going to be killing the intimacy. Sometimes we undervalue the importance of sex because we don't consider the science and the psychology behind it. And I really always try and get this message out because, again, when you've been married for a while, you can tend to take your marriage for granted. Okay, maybe it's not that you're taking your marriage for granted. Maybe it's the fact that life has gotten busy. The children have come along. You guys are working towards bigger things, right? Everyone's building, we're growing, we're trying to raise these children, we're trying to keep a roof over our head. Life is busy, and I hear many people say sex is the last thing on my mind. To me, that's almost like saying my marriage is the last thing on my mind. Why? Well, consider this. Consider that when a couple comes together, there's a lot that takes place psychologically and in the mind, biologically, that actually creates that oneness. So let me give you an example. There's a hormone called oxytocin. It's the love hormone, right? This is the hormone that's released when a baby is born. When a mother gives birth to a baby, oxytocin is released. That's the hormone that they call it the love hormone. It's the bonding hormone. That hormone is released when a baby is born to help the mother feel that sense of bonding, right? It also gets other things going in the body to help her to become a mother, but it's that hormone that creates that sense of bonding. Now imagine being in a marriage where you're declaring that you are one, yet you rarely bond on a psychological, emotional, spiritual level, on a biological level. That hormone is not being released. And that's why couples that are more frequently physically intimate do have stronger senses of relationship. Their friendship, their connectivity is tighter because that they keep getting that hit of the oxytocin, right? And the stronger the orgasm, the stronger the hit. The second thing that happens is that dopamine, another hormone releases. Just afterwards, dopamine is released. Now, dopamine is related to happiness, pleasure, motivation, right? And they're saying that we're on social media because we get that hit of dopamine, that feel good drug that our body gives us. Yeah. And so when we make love, when we're physically intimate, not only are we reinforcing the bond each time, but we're also saying to the brain, this is where my good place is. This is where my pleasure is. This is where my happy place is. I want more of wherever this is, more of you. Do you get? So when I get couples saying, oh, we're not passionate about each other, he doesn't pay me any more attention, I'm always looking to see whether the sex is happening. And the more that we're not having sex, the less that bond is taking place, the less dopamine hits we're getting. We're not getting addicted to each other. We're not taking each other's drug. So for those of us that say, sex is the last thing on my mind, physical intimacy isn't so much of a big deal. Okay, yes, I understand that it's important in marriage, but hey, we can go for 2 weeks. We can go for a month. We can go beyond. I'm not going to, if we're arguing, I'm not going to, if he doesn't or she doesn't do what I'm going to say, I'm going to withhold. Just bear in mind that the wall of connectivity is being broken down each time. That bond isn't happening, that sense of this is where my pleasure is. And bearing in mind that where our heart is, our treasure is. Your treasure, your passion is. So you want to create an atmosphere, a sense in your marriage that this is where the pleasure is. This is where the treasure is, right? And it can almost become addictive. Well, that's what that hormone does. It's a natural thing that we were given to connect us and bond us. Okay? So let me recap real quick. What is intimacy? Intimacy is a deep connectivity between two people. It's based on vulnerability. It forms a strong friendship. It's that I know you, you know me, and you are fully accepted. Right? Intimacy, there's 4 levels. There's emotional intimacy, mental or intellectual intimacy, spiritual intimacy, and then the physical intimacy. You get the other 3 right, your physical is going to be amazing. Okay? And then also just reinforcing that importance of the physical intimacy, and just knowing that even beyond, the spiritual and the thou shalt, on a very basic scientific level, you can understand why, how that one-ship is created and maintained and sustained. Don't forget that there's also hormones like endorphins and serotonin that is released that heals, stress relieves, changes your mood. Like literally, you can pump your marriage with a load of feel good as frequently as you want to. However, there's a number of things that kill intimacy. I'm going to focus on one key area depending on time, and it's that emotional intimacy. It may feel a little bit one-sided, but I'm going to try and balance out the sexes. Emotional intimacy. When we don't understand emotional intimacy and we don't handle it correctly, we will absolutely, there is a direct link to our physical intimacy. And then when the physical intimacy isn't right, there's more, it breaks more down on the emotional intimacy, and it's like a vicious circle. That's when you see a couple just moving apart like this, becoming more like business partners, flatmates, not knowing what they're in this marriage for. The passion has gone, the love has gone, the connectivity has gone. It's boring as hell. And like I said, I am not into the business of promoting those sorts of marriages. Emotional intimacy. There's something that I teach. It's called the double E formula. And it states that, it's a very general thing here, but give or take, it's absolutely correct. It states that women are all emotion, follow me here, and men are all ego. If we think of women as emotion and men as ego, okay? And when I say ego, everybody thinks, oh, that is so negative. I'll explain to you why ego isn't so negative in a moment. But let's work with women for a moment. If men or our husbands understood that their woman or their wife is all emotion. Like if you look at your wife, just see a whole bag of emotion. Women are driven by that emotion. We make decisions on our emotion. It's how we always talk about how we feel. How we feel is so important to us. Okay. And so, and listen, it's important as well because that feeling ability is directly linked to that thing that we call women's intuition. So we have a heavier dose of feeling because we need it for that women's intuition, that special discernment that women have. But how do we have it? Because we feel everything. A woman will step in a room and she'll feel the atmosphere. She'll meet someone, she'll feel if it's right. Women work with feeling. Now, a woman is going to shut down physically if her emotions are not in the right place. If her emotions are not intact, if she feels insecure, unsafe, unloved, not treasured, taken for granted, her emotions, she will feel it. When she feels that emotion, she struggles to open up and be vulnerable with you. Remember what I said before? Vulnerability is like the bedrock of intimacy. If I can't be vulnerable with you, I can't be intimate with you. Vulnerability is me leaving myself bare, right? So if I am married to somebody who doesn't honor my feelings, doesn't understand my feelings, uses harsh words, makes me feel uneasy, I'm walking on eggshells, I'm not free to be me, right? There's a parent-child dynamic going on. You're aggressive towards me. Your communication is hard. I don't feel loved. I don't feel adored. I don't feel treasured. We're going to struggle in the bedroom. Women will struggle in the bedroom. Why? Because we feel everything. Our emotions drive our sexuality and our ability to open up, even on a very physical level. Even if the spirit is willing, the body will say no, she'll be closed like this to you. So I'm rushing here, but men, you want to be looking at your wife and saying her emotions. How do I nurture her emotions? How do I create a safe place? Now, when I'm saying a safe place, I don't mean safe from intruders, right? I don't mean safe from harm. I mean, that's great. I mean a safe place where my wife can feel like she can speak, like she can share her mind, like I listen to her, I engage with her, I show her that I care about what she cares about, right? I make sure that she feels secure. I close every gap, any gap to insecurity, right? All right, let me move on to the men's side. Women are emotion, men are ego, right? Men are ego. Now, I want to say ego is not a bad thing, okay? It's not a bad thing. And many women make the mistake of working hard to pull down their man's ego because they think ego is such a terrible thing. I was speaking the other day on the other group, and I was explaining that actually that ego that your husband has is very necessary for the role that he has to play as head, as lead, as protector, all the things that you require from him. Protect, provide, right? Cover. It requires ego. Lead, it requires ego. Way back in the day when we were almost cavemen and people had to go out and actually hunt for their food, right? It would be the man who would go out and face the dangers and he would keep his family safe. What was it that drove him, gave him the ability to do that? It was ego. It was ego. And so Now, indeed, these days, we don't need them to go out and fight the lion for us. But that level of ego is still required for him to be the man. Now, listen to this. A man's ego full stop, is directly linked to his self-identity. Directly linked to his self-identity, who he believes himself to be. Right? That's why you'll find a man, if he's doing, really well in work and he's very respected, and he's not getting that ego pump at home, he will gravitate to his work, or he'll gravitate to his friends. A man typically will gravitate to a place that aligns with his self-identity, his ego, or at least allows him to believe that he can be that man. Are you following? So when a woman is, I go as far as to say, stroking, when she's not stroking that ego, appreciating that ego, encouraging and championing his self-identity, he will gravitate to another place where it is. You don't become the treasure and the pleasure. That physical intimacy is gone. When you pull him down, when you're constantly correcting, when nothing he can do is right, when he is the one walking on eggshells, when you are hyper moody, everything is moodiness. Today you're happy, tomorrow you're angry. Today you're happy, tomorrow you're angry. It takes the smallest thing. You ask him a question, he's honest with you, you start crying. Emotional immaturity. It chips away at a man's ego, leaves him in a position where he cannot be vulnerable with you. When he can't be vulnerable with you, the intimacy is killed. It's killed. No vulnerability, no intimacy. Emotional intimacy broken, physical intimacy gone. Or struggles greatly, right? So what a woman wants to be doing is saying, how can I, number one, protect his ego? Number two, be the source of that. I feel great. When I'm with her, I feel like I can do so much. My self-identity, who I believe I am to be, she confirms it with me, right? She doesn't despise my ego. Right? She understands why it's required and protects it. Okay? And protects it. So one of the greatest, there's 7 intimacy killers that I identified in this book. But with a 20-minute window, one of the greatest things that you can take away is considering how vulnerable, how free is your marriage. As in the atmosphere. Are you accepting your spouse for who they are? Can they be themselves with you? Are they safe to be vulnerable? Right? Are they safe to be vulnerable? Are you operating your marriage from a place of fear or from faith? Faith will make you control it and kill it. Faith will allow you to let it be free. Okay? Creating a tight friendship, not despising your wife's emotion, but actually understanding it, using it, protecting it. Yeah. And vice versa, not despising the ego, but understanding it, using it, and protecting it. When you have that going on, intimacy will flourish. And when you think about it, look at the friendships that you have, right? Consider your closest friend. And you will see that one of the reasons why you guys connect so well is because you are able to be yourself. You are able to be vulnerable with them. They accept you, flaws and all. They don't try and knock your ego or your emotions.
Could it be that we have overlooked the importance of the place for physical, spiritual, all that stuff you mentioned, intellectual, in creating relationships? I think that is new to many. new to many. How are we supposed to now know and learn these things pre-marriage?
And you know, honestly, I really feel like not enough emphasis is placed on premarital coaching.
Yep.
Like, how do you actually, and you know, we do a lot of counseling, but actual coaching, like, how do you navigate through marriage? What are the actual principles that you need to be operating with, and understanding these things, and helping to people to emotionally mature in time for marriage. So I think it's critical. I think that we need to start really encouraging people. It needs to become a norm. You know, I'm seeing couples spending a lot of money on wedding day, and zero investment on marriage life. Right? And I think that mindset really needs to change, and the greater investment needs to be on preparing for married life than on a wedding day. And I would love the opportunity to be able to work with couples who are getting prepared to marry, to teach them that they need to be nurturing each other on an emotional, spiritual, and intellectual level if they really want to flourish in their marriage and have great physical intimacy.
Okay. So where can people find that kind of help, apart from people like you? Because number one, our churches don't have it, right? Our churches don't have that, and people don't
buy the book.
People don't even have the awareness to seek out for those kind of things, right?
You've got to,
Go on.
The first thing to know is that, and I think that this is the principle that needs to start getting taught, is that marriage doesn't just work. I think that many people get married with a very romantic idea. I did, that it's just going to work out. But I think the more that we talk about these things, the more that we've got plenty of books out here. There's so many. The more that we read and study, I think that things will begin to change. But it's going to have to. We're going to have to encourage people, and even in our friendships, you know, we're getting people that are learning these things, having friends in their circle getting married. I think people starting to talk about and say, hey, you need to go and sort of start reading, go and study,
get information, grow.
Get the information. You know, understanding is so important. And you know that as a coach, that nothing comes without understanding. And whenever we don't have understanding, we're literally just running in the dark.
Cool. Yep. Keep your questions coming. Let's go to your double E formula. Men are from Mars, ruled by egos. Women are from Venus, ruled by emotions. So let's start with women.
Yeah.
It does look like to activate a woman's sexuality, you need to tap into their emotions. You say the reason why many women are not feeling sexy and wanting to have sex with their husband is due to their lack and starvation of emotions, right? Not feeling
absolutely. Let me be very honest with you. It's a combination of a few things.
Yeah.
I'll go back to the one that I talked about in terms of the emotion, but also a lot of women can get to the point where they underestimate the importance, because maybe the libido isn't the same and maybe our need isn't the same. Not all women. And especially when a woman starts to get overworked, overwhelmed, overstressed, sex can quickly drop down the agenda. So there's also that, but a man can turn that around when he encourages that emotion in her. So I always say, listen, don't make love at night, make love all day long, using communication. I've got 4 pillars of communication for intimacy that I teach my couples to use every single day. Every day you want to be giving praise. Every day you want to be using positive comparison. Every day you want to be saying something of love, and every day you want to be flirting with your wives. So many couples do not even flirt, right? We're not flirting. A woman needs to be nurtured emotionally. Now, beyond what you're saying and beyond touching her, the environment that she's in needs to feel free and safe. Safety is so important to women's emotions. And like I said, we're not talking about safety from intruders or anything like that. I mean, safety of my heart, safety of my emotions, safety that I can trust that you're not going to break me, you're not going to put me down. You know, I can express myself, right? So those things are really important to women. And when you do that for women, it is, she desires you. She wants to open up for you. And I'll say it again, even if on a mental or conscious level, she's saying, oh, you know what, I've got to give this guy some sex because, you know, it's something I got to do. Even though my emotions is not in the right place, if her emotions are not in the right place, the physical requirement for it to happen becomes difficult for her.
Okay, so let's stay there a bit. Who right. manages the, I'm going to go to men before the ladies begin to shoot me. Who manages the atmosphere at home? Men or women?
Both.
Okay.
Now, women are more intuitive. So a woman will pick up the change in the atmosphere before man even recognizes what's going on. And that's why people tend to say women control the atmosphere. It's not really that. She's aware of the shift. So when a woman, this is why men really need to appreciate a woman's gift. Her ability is to feel her emotions, allow her to be more intuitive by nature. She notices the shift before you know what day it is. So when a woman says to you, I feel like something is wrong, just because you don't feel it, you better trust her because she's right. I feel tension in the air. You'll be like, oh, there is tension. She'll be right. There'll be tension. Might take you a while to get there. But both parties are in charge of setting the right atmosphere. Now, you can set your own personal atmosphere and say, well, you know what? I'm not dealing with his. I'm going to set myself in a mindset of peace and love and create that. But also a man has the power to do that and shift things.
Okay. So, okay. So sometimes I think we fall into the stereotype. So I'm gonna actually be vulnerable here. And
go ahead.
When I got married, before I got married, there was all this whole story about all men think about is sex. Okay, fine. I'm glad you have it in your head. Sex.
Oh,
you get it from church and all that. Or a man thinks about sex every 5 minutes and da and blah blah blah. So fine, maybe honeymoon was a bit like that. Well, I'm not even sure honeymoon was a bit like thinking about sex. You just knew that that's what you went to do on the honeymoon and when the Barbados and all that. But when I came back home, I want to make money, right? The money is that we just spent so much money on a wedding and things like that. And then there was a season where I began to think that something was wrong with me because some of the things I had learned, it was the reverse was the case. So I'm the type of guy who needs the house to be in a certain way, not the woman, right? So I need everything arranged. I need my house tidy. I need the kitchen has to be fine. The room, if the room isn't tidy, there is no amount of anointing that's going to make anything happen. And right. Things like that, right? So what do you say to something like that? So the woman, right, needs to, in my case, my expectation is that my woman controls the atmosphere. You know what you need to do. The same way there's an expectation for me to know what to do to get it on. Do you also know what to do to get me on?
So let me just address this. The woman controls the atmosphere. What you're saying is that if you don't get the atmosphere right, I'm going to come in a mood and destroy her atmosphere.
It may not even be a mood. It may just... nothing may just happen. I'm just not in there.
Nothing will happen.
Yeah.
So listen,
so in my own case, what I found out is hotel sex is always great. So travel out as long as I'm not in the atmosphere. So that made me understand that it is important. The atmosphere is a big thing. So when we're on holiday, it's good. When we're in the hotels, is good. But why can't I get that at home? Why don't you control that atmosphere so I don't keep spending money going to the hotels? I'm just kidding.
Are you helping to create that physical atmosphere?
No. We're not doing counseling now. I'm just
no. Okay.
I'm just throwing
your personal counseling. But what in terms of, you know, when women say that all men think about is sex, let me give you a secret. I have a lot of men. Women are always surprised to hear me say this. I have a lot of men who reach out to me and, you know, have one-on-one sessions with me to talk about the issues that they're having in their marriage with intimacy. Now, when you first listen, it sounds like sex, but actually, when you get underneath it, what they're saying is, I feel undesired.
Nice.
I feel unwanted.
Now you're talking. We didn't have to rewind. Let's go. That's where I want us to get to. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's what they're saying to me. I don't feel respected. I don't feel comfortable. I feel judged. Ladies, this one's a big one. I feel judged. Don't make enough money. You went out this, you did this, you did that. I'm not free. Right? Yep. And so underneath all of that, underneath the sex claim is all these things that the men really want, right? And oftentimes as well, when they are saying not enough sex, they're saying she doesn't approach me.
Exactly. Now you get it.
She doesn't initiate.
So let me jump in there, right? They call us the hunters, right? Before I got married to a woman, right, I was hunting. So why you was hunting? Why stop me from hunting at home? I still need to hunt. There's something about me that wants to hunt. I want to feel like I'm pursuing. Ladies, I'm coming. I'm going to go there in a bit before they shoot me. I want to feel like I'm still pursuing. Create the atmosphere for me to pursue. Create the atmosphere for me to hunt. Yeah. Create one big one I noticed in my own marriage a long time ago was, why do I always have to keep initiating?
Yeah, this is a big one for men.
Why am I always having to initiate? So if I don't initiate, nothing is going to happen.
Well, let me help you out with that as well, because some of the issue is that women have this very romantic idea that we do not initiate. Like, men do all the chasing. It's just not a thing for women to do. Women, all of you that are on that here, if that is your belief, please right now break it. Your husband needs to feel. Don't for a moment think that your husband does not have emotional needs too, just because he doesn't reflect it in the same way as you, right? And so when you initiate with your husband, what you're saying to him is, I find you attractive.
Come on.
I desire you. I want you. Again, why does that work for men? It links back to his ego. He needs that from you.
Do you have an initiative that you can send the women to?
Say that again. Well, I am looking to really take a full-on sexology course, and I'm going to whip up some women very, very soon, because this needs to change. Yeah. I've received emails from men nearly crying, telling me that it's breaking them because they can't go anywhere else. They want to stay faithful. They want them, but this is a real need for them, and they don't feel desired, right? And so women, and here's the thing, women will say, well, I'm not in the mood. Well, let me challenge that with two things. Number one, you know that you may start off not in the mood, but give it a few minutes and you will be in the mood, because that's how the body works. Number two, if anybody else called you, your sister called you, your friend called you and said, I need you, you would suddenly find the energy and jump out of bed and go and do it. Number three, you are in complete control of your mindset. So put yourself in the set for being prepared. I say prepare yourself. Put yourself in that sexy mood. Don't always wait for your husband to do that. And you know what to do it. Maybe it's a long bath. Maybe it's a glass of wine. Maybe it's dancing. Maybe it's working out. So put yourself in the position where you are ready and able.
Oh, nice. I mean, because anyway, let me move away before the ladies come, because I mean, there's a particular date I can never ever forget, and as far as I'm concerned, that date is etched in my mind. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the day my wife raped me. I was tired, I was sleeping, but I don't know what she did to me that day. As far as I'm concerned, she raped me, but I've never forgotten that day.
You just loved being raped.
Exactly. Just rape me. It's okay. I don't have to be the one. I don't have to be the one doing it. Anyway, so let's go back to the double E formula so that we can go to the women. So men. Right. So we don't always have all the men. Men are not always, not every man that you have. All men are about roses, chocolates, and not all women are also into the romance thing, right? In fact, when we see all that whole 5 love languages, it seems that you need a degree in women to understand them. So what's the way, in your opinion, to a woman's heart?
The way to a woman's heart is understanding her. Okay, that sounds complicated already. Well, then how do you understand her, Adeaze? Yes, I would say figure out her love language, but also I think that when a woman feels heard, right? Let's forget flowers, let's forget chocolates. Heard, treasured, and understood, and not taken for granted, appreciated. Heard, treasured, understood, and not taken for granted, right? When a woman says that she wants to feel loved, it's, have you thought about me today? Do you prioritize? Do you help me? Do you see what I'm doing? And do you see me in the midst of this? Right? Do you appreciate me? Do you hear me when I'm talking? Do you take time for me? These are all, I'm not mentioned flowers and chocolates yet. Do you put down your phone and say, babe, tell me, talk to me about you? Do you walk in and see the house isn't straight and say, I know that she's busy, I'm going to help her straighten it out, right? Do you protect her like nobody can say a word against her? Like, does she feel protected? It's all the things that she feels. Does she feel protected? Does she feel appreciated? It still all comes down to emotion. And the romance thing is like the very nice cherry on the cake, right? But even if you're going after business, even if you're going after the money, if in the midst of that, the business and the money appears to be first, she feels like that's the priority, that's going to affect her. How do you make sure that the woman in your life knows beyond the shadow of a doubt that she is number one, right? And it doesn't take roses and chocolates to do that.
Yeah, but she's in the house. The man knows she's in the house. No, you don't have another woman in the house.
It's not about another woman. Your job is another woman. Money is another woman. Friends are another woman. Church is another woman. Ministry is another woman.
The phone,
right?
the
Social
phone.
media is another woman.
Our phones, our
family. Yeah, family, in-laws is another woman. Right? The children is another woman.
But but most times that comes from the woman. The woman is the one prioritizing the kids over the man.
Yeah,
right?
More time over. Yeah, most time.
Most times.
So it's real. Go ahead.
No, go on.
So it's really about making sure that she knows that above all else, I would drop everything in a heartbeat for you. Right? I always say to some men as well, with the protection thing and covering, because I hear these men say, I report her to this, I report her to that. I could have done something wrong to you, Aaron, and my husband would have known. Yeah. Let's say he knew it. He saw me do it and he knew. Right. In front of your eyes, he will act like a fool. He'll say, no, she didn't. She never did it. And you'll be like, no, she didn't. He say it again. She never did it. That'll be in front of you. When we get home, you'll be like, why did you do that? Why did you do that? But for everybody else outside, there's nobody that could speak against me in his presence. That's the kind of things, the little things like stepping out and holding her hand, the little thing like when she walks in the room, giving her that look to know, I've noticed you. The little thing like when you come into the house, not just going off and taking a shower, going and giving her a kiss and just saying thank you for everything, right? It's just the small things. And I think that sometimes in marriage, we neglect the small things. We think it's got to be, it's the holiday. And I took you on holiday. I took you out for that date. Yeah, but you don't even speak to me now. You don't even wake up in the morning and notice that I'm there lying naked next to you. You don't even notice those little things.
Well, right? What if nakedness doesn't work for you?
Doesn't matter, I'm here. I'm right here in the bed, right? So wake up in the morning, thank God that you have this woman. Give me a kiss, acknowledge me. Many women feel forgotten, neglected, and unappreciated.
Yep. Right, so I'm I'm trying to balance the conversations in my head, not to sound just very manly, so that the ladies can have something from it. So many men are being starved emotionally, even though we think it's all emotions is this woman thing.
Very
And
starved.
physically by women who are starving them of sex. And like you said, this impacts their ego, which impacts their confidence. Some of them doesn't.
Yes.
Someone like me though, which impacts their self-esteem, which ultimately affects their identity. Right. So what do we do about that? And if there are tips, so what are tips for men to help? You've shared some of the tips. What are tips for men who find themselves in that kind of scenario? Who will find themselves in that scenario where their ego is gone because it's not been stroked, which affects their self-esteem and things like that. I don't know if I'm stringing my questions very well, but
I think I get what you're asking. So I think you're asking me if a man is in a position where, because of the impact of maybe lack of sex and not meeting him emotionally, his ego has been impacted, and he wants to know what to do, how to break that cycle, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, first of all, communication is number one. Sometimes we don't know. We didn't know that nagging you was going to knock your ego. We didn't know that correcting you all the time is going to knock your ego. We didn't know that telling you, I told you so, or controlling everything was going to knock your ego. We didn't know that you needed us to initiate. We didn't know that maybe sex was such a big deal, or even that your emotions are impacted because you don't cry like we do, or make noise, or you don't speak about it as openly as women do. We didn't know that, right? So how about, first of all, let's have a real conversation and you tell me how you're feeling. I would really encourage anybody in that position to start with talking, right? And then if you're in the position where wifey doesn't get it, absolutely you need to get some help. This is where someone like myself comes in, who can help your wife understand where.
Yeah, actually, let me stay there, because 90% of my clients, 80% of my clients are women. And
wow.
Yeah, they don't understand. And the challenge they have is, a lot of them, but not many men understand the need for counseling and the need for outside help. What advice can you give these women, and how can they get their husbands to a place where they can begin to also seek help? In my marriage, we have a friend of ours who speaks to us every Saturday, literally. No, actually, even before we go there, from the day we got married, I have a group of friends, and I've always told my wife, if you can't reach me, reach these people. Any one of these people can reach me. So I can remember one evening I was about to start one of my mastermind sessions, and I see all my friends showing up in the house. I think it was a surprise, but my wife had reported me to Fred. So my program had to be canceled, because obviously she'd been trying to tell me something that I wasn't hearing. Right. Again, in my marriage at the moment, we have a particular friend who's working with us at the moment, making sure we meet every weekend and intentionally asking us questions, helping us think about things we're no longer thinking about. But not many people have this awareness that they need that kind of help and stimulation to help their marriages. Do you have anything that can help women who find themselves in this place where their husbands will go for counseling? Their husbands don't want any other thing at home. Their husbands won't allow them bring somebody else to cook for them. Their husbands won't allow anyone else come and help them with the children. And all that whole stuff that is affecting the women.
Yeah, absolutely. Number one, you don't force him, because you're just going to get whoop, whoop, whoop. That will happen. So if you have tried to approach, you've explained how you feel, you've really expressed that you guys need help, and he's absolutely rejecting the idea, take the idea of out of your mind that you're going to try and change him. But what you can use is the power of influence, right? You can use the power of influence. Don't want to get too sort of scriptural and biblical on you guys, but there's a scripture that says that if you've married to someone who doesn't believe, through your conduct, through your actions. Now, I take that further. If you're married to someone who isn't responding, can't see where you're coming from, isn't meeting you halfway, you use your power of influence. Be the change that you want to be. It's amazing what happens in your home when you change. When you take the focus of the other person and you look inwards. I remember that years back, I would have said to you, Aaron, that, you know, I was the kindest, most humblest, sweetest woman you would have ever met, most forgiving. And then I got married and we went through hell. And I was pointing my fingers at my husband. I was like, you need to get help and there's something wrong with you and all that. And one day I had to self-reflect. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I was like, wow, I've got a terrible attitude, very unkind, not so forgiving, and stinking with pride. Right? And so now when I started to shift, when I started to change, everything else, I mean, it's a law. It's a law of the universe. It's just how it is. Even if you're saying, well, you know what, if I move my phone here, nothing else moves. Well, actually, there's atoms in the air that moves. Everything changes when you change. So I would say to you, leave them alone. Take your focus off him. Focus on you. What can you shift in your life that will cause a shift in the atmosphere, a shift in your relationship? And people will always respond to who you present yourself to be. And we know that. We'll go to one friend and we slightly adjust because of the energy they give us. And then we go to another person, we slightly adjust. So when you change, your spouse will be forced to make some adjustments. Whether they like it or not, there will have to be some adjustments. So start to look inwards. And there's plenty of people actually who have come to me who would have liked to have done couples coaching, but the husband hasn't been willing. And so we've done individuals and we've caused change in the marriage. But also, Erin, I want to say that I think that there's been a wind of change because I am getting a lot of husbands reaching out and seeking for help. So I do think that awareness is growing. It's slowly but surely it's happening.
Right, cool. So let's this person says, well, I was gonna be cheeky with this one. This person says, Coach, it's not true though that missed that question. That if a woman has gone to cloud 9 before, what was that? If they've gone to cloud 9 before, they would always be up for it. I wanted them to describe what cloud 9 looks like, but I'm kidding anyway. For the sake of women.
Okay.
For the sake of women. Okay, so can you help the men? So keep the question. I'm going to come to that question. Can you help this man? This doesn't happen in my home. My wife has never told me any of this, but I hear a lot of ladies talk about it. Can you help them women who constantly are having evening headaches, not in the mood or love to, and they're fasting and depriving their husbands of sex and all that kind of stuff? Headache. My wife has never ever told me she's had a headache.
It never happens to her.
Yeah, no. So for people who are actually genuinely having headaches, is there something in the body that makes these headaches happen?
Yeah, it's called can't be bothered. It's called can't be bothered, too lazy. He is not giving it to me right. It's going to be the same thing every night and I just cannot again. He's not paid attention to me all day. A week. Now suddenly the mystical hand comes over. They're all things that cause the headache. I'm overworked and I'm overstressed. But like I said before, what I've started to teach women is to, number one, get their own sexy back. Like, let's take the responsibility of your husband. You know, he's got to put me in the mood. He's got to make me feel this way. He's got to work with my emotions. He's got to take him out of the picture for a moment. Let's start to take some control back. Yeah. How do you get yourself there? How do you remind yourself that you are an energetic, full of life, beautiful, sexy, hot-blooded woman? How do you remind yourself of that? Or are you happy to stay in your mindset of this overworked, downtrodden, tired, can't be bothered, sexless, sex-free, unsexy woman? Right? So you have to start taking some ownership of your own sexuality, right? You have to start finding that femininity within you, reminding yourself that actually you guys are lovers, your parents, and you're all these other very important things. But listen, you guys are lovers. And after everything goes away and the children leaves, you're still going to be lovers if you maintain now. So being intentional about your own sexuality is important. And then when I'm saying intentional, it's what I mentioned before. How do you create an atmosphere for yourself, whether that be working out, whether that be a bedtime routine? I have a nice bedtime routine that helps me to be more times out of 10 ready. Not only ready, but wanting, right? With the way, my whole facial routine, whatever I do in the bathroom to get in that position. There's some stretches you can do. There's some things that you can do. There's some things that put you in that mind. Is it music, right? Make yourself. Listen, let me tell you this. There was a survey done with men, and they were asked what was the most attractive thing about women or wives, right? Or women. And all the women were expecting to see, boobs and legs and, all that as, physical things at the top. But you know what men said, Aaron? They said confidence and kindness.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think
confidence and kindness. And so what I was reading from that, and also from the men that I work with and I coach and what have you, is that they want their women. They want that woman that they married. That confident, self-assured, sexy, owned her sexuality.
Yeah, man.
Right?
Be a Delilah at home.
Be a Delilah. It's not hyper holy every day. But it's about you being empowered enough to say, listen, regardless of you, I am a sexual being, right? And I know how to switch on my sexy, right? So I think that's what I would advise women to do. The second thing as well is please do not underestimate the power of sex in your marriage. Don't underestimate it. Okay. And I broke it down earlier about the very real biological things and psychological things that happen with sex. It is the bond. It is a glue. And if you want to be your husband's passion, then one of the things you are going to need to do is up your levels in that place, in that area.
Someone is saying something there. I think what she's trying to say there is the sex is not good. If a woman keeps saying no, having headaches, I think the man needs to check himself. Maybe he's not good with the process. Is there?
Well, there is that. And, communication, again, is amazing. And, don't just lie there and take rubbish.
Is there anything wrong? Is there anything wrong with a woman mentoring the man?
No.
Tell me how you want it.
I think that's one of the great things about marriage. You get this whole lifestyle to create a sex that is perfect for you two. Right?
Somebody just asked a question that made me say, I'll leave this to you. I'm a man of God, I'm a pastor. So I just keep
okay. You've got this whole marriage to create, whatever you want of it. So lead, advise, show, try, adventure, do things, right? You don't have to just lay back and take whatever you're given.
All right.
And again, I believe that your husband would enjoy you being a bit more forthright in saying, hey, this one position is not working for me. Let's do this.
Nice. Someone is asking, is there a place for vibrators in marriage?
If that's your thing, absolutely.
Okay.
If that's your thing, absolutely.
Good stuff. So, is it too much of an ask? Is it too much of an ask for men? Let's say me now. Let's say me so that we don't abuse the men. So you need to go soon, right?
No, I'm good for now.
You're good. All right. You need a prayer. I want a prayer warrior. I want a chef in the kitchen. I want Foxy in my sheets. Is
it too much?
Is that too much to ask? Is there?
Well, let's compare it to what a lot of women want. I want a provider, I want a leader, I want a priest in the home, I want a romancer, I want a father, I want a man that's like Tyrese in the bedroom. I mean, it's pretty equal, if not more. right? So I don't think it's a big ask, but I do think that people have to work together. I think it's important for us to cover each other's weaknesses and encourage each other's strength. Where you are weak, I am made strong. And so that's what a great team is made out of, when you can really pull together and help and support each other so that nobody's exhausted and just feeling like they're being overworked. You're never going to get the best out of anybody. Think about it in your workplace, how happy your overworked staff is,
Right.
and so, you need to, again, create a great, happy culture in your house where everybody feels supported and important.
All right, let's go. I don't think it's personal because you talk a lot about this. Okay. And we see this happen a lot in our worlds today. And even just in the last weekend, we've seen a highly renowned pastor who's just come out to say he's had extramarital affairs. And you've talked openly about your husband. What do you think you were doing wrong when your husband was cheating outside?
I wasn't doing anything wrong.
Responsibility. Are you going to take responsibility?
Yeah. I take 0.00 responsibility for the actions of anybody in this world, apart from my children.
Okay.
Because everybody is grown. And even if there were things, and there would have been, and there are, which is why I've had to go and we've had to go on a journey of growth and creating this marriage that is now our greatest blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Things that we can improve on, things that we can grow. But if there are things in your marriage that you are not happy with and you're not satisfied with, there are so many options that you can take. Marriage can be healed, things can be addressed, things can be worked out. So if you make a decision to do something that is detrimental to your marriage, then that's exactly what it is. It was your decision. And as a grown adult, you have to take full responsibility if you want change to happen.
Yeah. So what in your opinion, do you think men tend to stray away from their marriages, even when they have these amazing looking partners?
Yeah. When I spent a lot of times, like a lot of women saying, babe, what did I do? What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? What was I doing? And he refused to place any blame on me. But when we had time to think and, we're going through this process, one thing that my husband said is that, when a man really lacks vision, when he doesn't understand the whole point, the long game, what he's building, the legacy, he'll treat it loosely, right? And sometimes some men know that straight away, and sometimes some guys just don't really catch the ball on that. And so lack of vision will lead you astray. The grass will look greener. You don't treasure what you have. You get bored and complacent with what you have. You look for fault with what you have. So there's that. Not to give any excuses, but it is something that came up with one of my clients the other day. And I just want to say this, again, not for an excuse, but this thing of men not having a safe place to be open with their emotions is a real thing. It is a real thing. And so I'm working with a couple of men actually who they were in and still are a really dark place emotionally, depressed, broken. And so when someone is depressed and broken and in a dark place, they make depressed and broken in a dark place decisions, right? That they think is going to make them feel better. They tend to undervalue what they have and almost blame what they've got, for why they're feeling that way, and step out and try. It's almost, in this instance, it's a woman, but it could have been alcohol. It could have been drugs. It was something to try and fill that gap. So I know a lot of women will be like, no, that's not an excuse. But at some point, we also have to look at emotional and mental health of men and how that can drive behavior as well. It's just another thing to think about.
Yeah. So, but how can their wives be attuned to that? And in those moments, be attuned to that and not necessarily get into their own feelings and help them
Yeah.
navigate that journey? Because it's a dark place, right?
Yeah. And this is the thing. And I think that this was one of the biggest lessons that I learned, was that just because we're married doesn't mean that our journeys, our individual journeys end, right? We all have a goal to fulfill. We all have a call. We all have a path, right? And sometimes those paths can lead us down dark routes. And, you know, life is not a straight line when you get married. There's ups and there can be some very, very deep lows. Like I said, could be infidelity, could be anything, right? One of the key things is to try and look at what is going on from a position where you're not taking everything personally. So what I find is that women will say, he did it to me. He went out and he did that to me. He did that with that woman to me. He started drinking, he's done it to me, right? And when you really analyze that, what you're saying is this person went out and said, you know what? I am going to hurt this woman. I am going to destroy her life, right? I'm going to cheat on her and make sure that she is a mess. 9 times out of 10, that did not happen, right? That didn't happen. Somebody was in a dark place, or making a stupid decision, undervaluing their marriage, whatever it was that led it there. But most of the times it wasn't a personal attack on you. This is very hard for some people to take. And so if when you're able to step back, you're able to see a pattern of behavior or a decline in your husband. This is if they're struggling with the mental health. And I had to do this where I had to look at the man who I had married. And I had to look at him and say, what's presenting to me right now is evil, is wicked, is this person that wants to destroy me. But what I know him to be is a great guy, loving, there for his family, has always wanted family, and has treated me like a queen. Am I going to define his entire life on this corner, this turn in his journey? I decided not to. Best decision I ever made. Best decision I ever made. But that happened from me stepping out of it, saying, right, let me not be doing all this. He did it to me. It's to me. Let me take myself out of victimhood, which is where we naturally want to gravitate to. Stand in a place of authority and almost try and look and see what's going on. Okay. And look at the person. And you know, that really helps. And that's some of the things that's helping with my clients as well.
Good stuff. We have some guys who are when it comes to sex duration, who are like Mo Farah, they can go on like it's a marathon, such that the women are walking with bow legs the next morning.
Wow. Wow.
You have some other guys who finish quickly like Usain Bolt, even before the gun has gone off, sometimes leaving the women asking for, have you finished already? So how do you deal with this, especially as women tend to be the ones who need much time to climax? Meanwhile, the guy wants to just drop his load, roll over and snore.
Oh, it's very selfish. It's very selfish. I think that you need to educate your man. Number one, he might feel like that's okay and that's enough and that's what he knows. Again, you know, taking the lead and teaching and showing, there's nothing wrong with that. Also, guys, there are sex therapists out there who are skilled in teaching these things and helping you in that line. I think as well, I would let him know how it makes you feel, right? So one of the things that I teach is not just saying what you don't want. Yeah. I don't want this, and you do that wrong, and you do that wrong.
You want. But I actually like that, because even with coaching and my awareness, generally, I think that's actually the major trouble with men and women. Women are so fond of saying what they don't want, but they never seem to know what they want. They never tell you what they want. They never say what they want, but they will fill the house up and annoy you and argue with everything they don't want. Yes, I went there.
One of the key things that my clients do is we focus on, and they could be in the worst marriage in their perceived eyes, in their perception. One of the first things we do is focus on what is your desire? What do you want? The fears of the wicked overwhelm them. I'm not saying that you're wicked, but fears overwhelm them. And your fears are, I don't want this. I don't want that. I've seen that again. I don't want it. I don't want it. But the desires of the righteous are granted. Right? It's your desires that are granted. So you flood your mind and your atmosphere with what you do want. And that's what you express. And when you back that with how it makes you feel, I want this from you, babe, because it makes me feel more in love with you. I want you to do this because it makes me feel more connected to you. That is so much more powerful than, hey, when you do that, I feel like this. And it makes me, and when you do that, I'm tired of it. Stop doing this and stop doing that. Again, walls. It creates defensiveness. When you create defensiveness, vulnerability is gone, because you can't have defense and vulnerability at the same time. Okay. So you've always got to create an open space. And how you create an open space is by, number one, looking for the good, first of all. So I like what you did today, Erin, when you focused on gratitude first. So first of all, let me praise you, right? I'm going to say, do you know what, babe? You come like a hammer. Right? And it's great. Love that. Right? What I'd also like for you to do is take your time on me, because when you do that, it makes me feel like that'll help.
That's so good. Let's go to.
I've got it'll be about 5 minutes before I get the call.
All right, good. There's a question on there. Can every marriage be saved? I think the answer is yes, but let me hear from you.
Every marriage can be saved. Does everybody want to save their marriage or believe enough and have the commitment to it? No. But every marriage, if two people make that decision to, absolutely, because it's principle. It's like saying, can every cake be baked? Can every car drive? It's a principled thing. So when two people are operating within the principle, it works. It's almost mathematics.
So the two people basically have to be in it.
However, let me just say that you can start the wind of change with one person. So when somebody says, oh, well, it's just me, it was just me to start with. And lots of my clients, it's just them to start with. And they bring enough wind of change through influence into their marriage that then the partner joins them then and continues the healing and the growth.
Okay, cool. Where do I go? Let's talk to singles quickly. So what will be your advice to... So I'm always teasing one of my friends. It said, single pillow hugging women out there, especially with Christmas coming and approaching, and even men with their fantasies in this season. How do they take care of themselves in this season, in light of what's going on, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough if you're trying to withhold from meeting those desires. I would definitely try and look for the good. So what are the things that give you that same hit of dopamine, which is really what the body's looking for, that oxytocin that I was telling you about? What are those things that give you that? Well, spending time with family is going to do that. Working out is going to do that. Exercise is going to be amazing for you. Meeting up with friends, socializing. Achieving things, setting yourself a goal and achieving them is going to give you that feel good. So, I would create that same sense that you'll get from sexual pleasure as much as you can by using those things. But also, don't be down and out. I mean, this is an amazing time for you to do whatever you want to do in this world. I always say, single people, look, if one of your things is that you've wanted to climb the Great Wall of China, now's the time to do it. You wanted to get into business and start a tech company, now's the time to do it. You wanted to learn how to make hats, now's the time to do it. Like, use this time. Get yourself to a position where you're not coming into a marriage just to seek what you can get, but you've got so much to give. Really focus on that.
So because of your time, probably 2-in-1 question. Okay. A lot of us from African descent, we we grew up seeing romance in the kitchen and our parents playing Stop It, I Like It. So that's our picture of romance.
Some of us didn't even get that.
so do you think that our ethnic orientations and backgrounds play a major part in how we now approach? I think it does approach intimacy. Second one, most of the audience here are predominantly of African Caribbean origins, traditionally church people and all that stuff. Where do we strike the balance of what is true now that we watch movies and we watch Hollywood, but we also have what we've seen from our parents?
Yeah. I'm going to say this. I work with clients all around the world, like I said before, in the Middle East, Australia, America, UK, and in Africa. Some of our cultures, the African culture, is not helping us in marriage. It's not. And I think that it's really important that when you get into your marriage, create your own culture that works for you. Okay? Create your own culture that works for you. Some of it is people are people all around the world. Women are women all around the world. Men are men all around the world. But particularly for women, they do all need that emotional connection. They want that romance. They want it. And so I think that if we can break some of these cultural things that hold our marriages back from really being flourishing and exciting, then that would be amazing. There's no reason why you cannot be married for 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, and not still be excited to see your spouse, not be taking weekends away, not be, enjoying your life in the bedroom and feeling crazily in love. There's no reason why.
Yeah.
But this cultural thing that makes us feel like, it's not important is killing. And people are suffering inside. We saw what we said, our parents stayed together for 30 years. They were happy. Think and really see what you saw growing up, and somebody was suppressing what they really truly wanted. That's why I say create the marriage that you actually truly do desire, one that you really desire, right? And don't just settle for this, we're married.
Last question, because of your time. Someone just said this to me. So I remember I have a friend who literally has banned the wife never to wear that spider stuff they put over their head before they go to bed. He has to accept.
It's hard because it makes our hair hard work in the morning if we don't.
Do you have any advice for wives who have qualified in that art of being unsexy, walking around with berets, covering their head with whatever they cover their head, grandma wrappers, Halloween face mask, the list goes on. How can you help such women today?
I'm going to tell you, women, and listen, as I'm talking to you, I'm talking to myself. It's a continual challenge because sometimes you're just like, look, I'm putting my face mask on. I've got to wrap this hair. You just got to do it. But I will say that in the same way that women are intuitive, we sense things intuitively better. Men use their five senses a lot more. They're driven by what they can see, right? What they can smell, right? And touch, taste, all those things are going to be important. So you need to consider what it is, the presentation that he's seeing every day, knowing that it is registering. People say, well, if he loves me, he'll accept me how he is. Oh, he loves you, it's fine. He'll just be like, the attraction that night might not be so strong. And that's the reality of it, I love my car, but do I prefer it when it's a lot cleaner? Yes, I do, absolutely. And I enjoy the drive better than when it is a mess, right? So I think, bear in mind, think about the experience that your poor man is having every night and what he's got to live with. And just bear in mind that his eyes, when he got married to you, his eyes didn't become shaded. He can still see and he smells very well. And those five senses are important to you. They register with him. Women, we're good. We can sort of look beyond and say, well, at least he loves me. Men, it's a little bit more straight down the line than that.
Yep. Thank you so much. Everybody, can we wish Adeaze some love? Thank you so much, Adeaze. We're going to have you come back again. Let's shake some tables in some areas. It's been such a great conversation. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
Another show right now. All right, bye, everybody. God bless you. And see you again next week, Monday. Bye.